time for the last presentation of the night. It's going to be Brandon Sheffield. He's already ready. He's got his notes. He's got his computer. So let's get started. Here you go, Brandon.
Hello. So if any of you were at CEGC, just to warn you, this talk is similar to what I did in my rant, but it has more stuff in it. So there's extra, don't worry. To start out, I'm director of Necrosoft Games and also contributing editor to Gamasutra, but not really. I pretty much quit 2.5 years ago, and I do this full time. They don't pay me, I just sometimes give them articles at Gamasutra. So yeah, we've been doing this for a little while. We have a distributed team across the world. I have people in Hungary and Poland and Uruguay and Japan and Ireland, and I live in California, but I'm the only person in the US. Everybody else just lives in their house, wherever that house is. So we put out our first game called Gun House on PlayStation Mobile and Windows Phone, and we got both Sony and Microsoft to pay for the same game, so that's pretty good, I think. We actually used App Campus, which is the same thing the last guys used. But this talk is pretty much about getting your development funded through publisher investment or through technology platforms and things like that to kind of kickstart what you're trying to do while still keeping your IP and all of that, because I have noticed, well, not noticed, but I have seen that throughout the years a lot of companies, when they don't keep their IP, they just get screwed. If they have a success, there's nothing they can do to capitalize on it. And so it's worth taking less money even to keep what you own. So first, I want to talk about how we got to this space that we're in now, where it's pretty tough for everyone to get money, and it's hard to sell games. We have big companies are too big, and they've taken over that AAA market completely. Indies have sort of come up out of nowhere, just out of the desire to make games. And the medium-sized developers that used to be like porting houses or doing middle-sized games for the Wii or whatever, those companies are almost all gone. So while the indies were kind of helping themselves up, early on, the ones that had early successes like Braid or Castle Crashers on Xbox Live, these kinds of things, they got a lot of money. And some of these ones got then big enough that they started funding smaller indie developers. And that's what happened with me. We didn't get big, but a bigger one, Iron Galaxy, who made Dive Kick, they're actually funding one of our games right now. So, yes, we have this weird situation where some big indies are funding smaller ones, and all of these kind of indie successes make indie devs look attractive to people that have money. If you look at the PlayStation 4, for example, with their E3 launch, rather E3 announcement, everyone thought that they basically won E3 over Xbox One because they put indies on the stage. They seemed like real human beings because they had these scrappy guys up there on stage with them. And it seems to really be like a PR thing for these folks. So I think there's still some ways to make money through to fund your game, either through platform holders, publishers, or larger indies, and to some extent some of the funds. What you do after that, well, that's still a bit of a mystery to me because it's so hard to get noticed. But because it's really hard to get noticed, and because there's so many games releasing on the App Store all the time, this is why I think that you must get funding for your games from someone. Actually, last night in Brno, we were talking to a guy, and he sort of felt like it would be a failure if he took money from a publisher before releasing the game on his own, using his own power. But from my perspective, take the money, release part of your game, because that's all they really need, and then keep making it. Use that money to keep going. That's the perspective that we're coming from, and that's how we've managed to survive 2.5 years only releasing one game. But we released it twice. But it was paid for both times. So yeah, indies really need to think about money, even though we don't want to. We really just want to make our cool thing and release it to the world and then instantly get famous, but it just doesn't happen that way. We need to think about money carefully. So here's some ways to get money that have worked for me and that I've seen work for other people. One is look for new platforms and target those. So, like I mentioned, we released this game on PlayStation Mobile because Sony needed content. Is it working? Is it working? No.
Nope.
I may as well not use it. Can you hear me anyway?
There's a recording that.
Okay. Let's pause briefly. Functional. Okay. Hey, here we are again. Okay. So, right, yeah, we released this. We decided to put this game out on PlayStation Mobile because Sony was funding. And then once we finished it and put it out on PlayStation Mobile, then Microsoft paid us to port it to Windows Phone. And through that process, we were able to port it to Unity, which then meant we could put it anywhere. And this was great. And actually, Microsoft paid us more than we even needed, so that I could then take my programmer, pay for another 8 months for him to work on the online mode for our next game. So this kind of stuff is really useful to me. New platforms, if you get them early, they need content and they will pay you for it. And if they won't pay you for it, they'll do what they did for that the Panda Bomber game, and they will promote you and put you on the front of their app stores because these people, if they're not going to give you money, they're going to give you marketing, and that's useful too. But when you're doing this, you have to target your game to the platform. That game was great for the Shield because it showed off their chip. But we talked to NVIDIA and they didn't want us at all because we had a 2D game and that doesn't showcase their cool chip. And what they really want to do with that chip is show that it's great 3D and that phone manufacturers should put it in their phone. Like that's their whole thing. They're using this entire Shield thing just to promote their chip to get phone manufacturers to buy it. So you have to know what their angle is. A friend of mine got funding from Intel, for example, to support their RealSense camera thing, just because it happened to be in the right kind of genre. But I don't think you should target your game for those platforms necessarily. Just see if you have some idea that will work with it, and then try to exploit that. Indies are in a pretty good position to do this because we tend to be pretty small, and we can make things quickly. Next, find smaller publishers or medium-sized devs that will fund you. Devolver Digital, for example, they're really good. They only work on exactly the games they want to work on, but these kinds of publishers understand independent game development much more, and they give you better deals, pretty much. You're much more likely to get a 75% revenue share with one of these companies than, if you go with a traditional free-to-play company, for example, you're lucky if you even get 50%. But I think targeting your game to the audience is still important here, your audience being the person that's going to fund you. Devolver would not fund a kid's game. They would want something more hardcore, more action-oriented. And yes, find platforms to port your game to and target those. So when your game is done, then find a new platform to bring it to, another new platform, and try to get money again. And then you've got all these cool grants and funds here in Europe that I can't use. I'm very jealous of those. And then there are funds like Indie Fund, the Behemoth has a fund as well, and there's even like a Friends of the Indie Fund that is secret that you can, if you can find it, they have money as well. You know, it's like, hey, this game needs $20,000, and one of these secret indies will be like, sure, and they just press a button, and there it is. So, important things to remember when you try to make these deals. Never give up your IP, ever. I think it's a huge mistake. If you look at Techland, for example, in Poland, they made Dead Rising. Dead Island. Dead Rising was not them at all. They made Dead Island, and it sold super well, and it brought their publisher Deep Silver from like a budget publisher into like a at least middle tier publisher. They did super well, but Techland didn't really get money out of that because it's not their IP. So that's why they're working on original stuff now of their own, because you know, they made this huge blockbuster success that they didn't get the success from. And so there's, I mean, that is basically the best reason not to give it up. But also, on our smaller scale as independent game developers, which I think many of us are, you know, you don't want to have to talk to a publisher if you want to get your game into a bundle, or if you need to get extra funding from somewhere else. You don't want to have a conversation with them about that where they may say no. You want to be able to react quickly to the market changing quickly, because it does, and it is changing quickly. So then ask for timed exclusivity, not permanent exclusivity, because platform holders will want to just keep your game forever, and don't let that happen. And then once you do get the timed exclusivity, ask for less time. We, with our game Gunhouse, PlayStation Mobile, they wanted 4 months exclusivity. I said, how about 2? And they said, okay. That's all it took. I just asked for less, and they said, fine. Ask for more money than you think you need, but not much more than other people are getting. With PlayStation Mobile, I knew how much some of my friends were getting for their fund. I asked for 20,000 more. They said, fine. Always ask for more. Then also ask for higher revenue share in stages. With our current game, it's the game we're making right now. It's 25, 75, 75 for us. And then once the publisher makes twice their money back, then it's 90-10. We get 90. And the smaller publishers and the newer publishers will do that for you. The older ones will laugh at you, but they are also the ones that are going under right now, so you can laugh at them also. Like I said, indies are kind of marketing right now for these platforms. Sony kind of views it as a bonus to have indies. So aim your budgets to with their marketing budgets in mind, because if you're cheaper than that, then you have a good game, then you're a good talking point for them. And yeah, if there's no funding, you should look for platforms that have large potential audiences or give you good marketing support. So good marketing support from Amazon's Fire TV could potentially be good. It's possible they're going to push this really hard, so maybe you want to do that. Spry Fox, they made the game Triple Town, and they put their game out on the Amazon Kindle when there were no games on it, and people were thinking, what kind of a game can you make on this? But they actually did really well, because there was a game on Kindle, and it was their game, and it was on Kindle. It's like, they had 100% potential market right there. And the thing is to get a hit early one way or another. So the time that you want to do this is when the platform is new and they're in an investment cycle, because in the green part right there, they want to acquire users. And so they're willing to pay to get those users, because they need so they have a platform, they need content. That content will bring users, because people always say, it's the games, You need something there for me to buy your console or your platform or whatever to get on it. But once they have those users, then they know that basically everybody is going to develop games for their platform anyway, so now they don't care about you at all. But if you get in there early, they're just, through laziness, they're going to remember you and they're going to keep coming back to you because you've already done something for them. So for us, with our Windows Phone port, we made it completely free in order to get our downloads high so that we could then impress Microsoft and hopefully they would give us money again. We'll see if that works. Right, so how to survive with this kind of model that I'm talking about, it really only works if you're a smaller company, I think. It's possible it could work with a bigger company, but when you need, a $300,000 budget for a game, it's a lot harder to get that. If you need $75,000, if you need $100,000, sorry, it's dollars. It's pretty much close to euros right now, actually, because the euro's doing really bad. So you can just pretend I said euros. But if you need around that much money, then you're pretty much fine. They are much more likely to give that to you, and they have to talk to way fewer people to give it to you within their company. I think the distributed teams and people that live cheaply are pretty much the way to go with this. Less than 20% of my budget per month is for food and entertainment and everything that's not absolute just bills. Work with as few people as you can afford. Don't have an office because it's kind of a waste of money, I think. If you're small, again, big companies, well, they need it. And for your employees and people you work with, offer revenue share more than upfront money, which it's harder to do if you don't have a big network or reputation, but it can work. What else? Yeah, don't forget to keep thinking about your financial situation. Like I said, indies don't like to think about money, but you have to. We, for example, were working with one programmer for a while, and before realizing that we were kind of going in different directions and weren't communicating well, and so we wound up actually wasting almost a third of our budget, and we had to scrap all of that stuff because we weren't paying close enough attention to whether we were spending our money on the right things. So then we had to continue to make the game with 2/3 of the budget, and that's hard. And that game is still not out as a result, because I've had to find money from wherever else to finish it. And think about marketing for sure. It's really hard to do that too, because you just want to make your game, but you have to start thinking about marketing as part of your game. And unique vehicles to show your stuff. I'm still not very good at this. I just released a trailer 2 days ago, and I thought it was pretty good, but I made several big mistakes with it. Like, I called it a trailer when I should have called it a teaser, because it was actually a very early, glimpse at the game. We were trying to, make it mysterious, but people were just like, "Where's the gameplay? I don't know what this is." That was a mistake. Also, people hate pixel art right now. It's really, really weird. But we have a pixel art game, and there's a vocal minority of people that will just scream at you for making a game at all. We got our game featured on the PlayStation blog, and it was on the official PlayStation YouTube channel, and on the official Xbox One YouTube channel, and they released a press release. That was all great, and we got 40,000 views within 24 hours of our trailer, which is awesome for a small team like mine. However, it had as many dislikes as it had likes, which is super bad. And most of the comments were just about, "Microsoft, how dare you give us this game for free?" Which they're not doing. They thought it was their free game of the month for Xbox Live Gold for some reason, which it wasn't. But they're just, and on PlayStation 4 they were super mad that more like 8-bit graphics are coming out, even though ours could never be done with 8-bit systems. It's just really weird. There's a huge backlash against pixel art, and it's just changed in the last 3 months. That's a total aside. Sorry. Back to this. Also, you should have multiple opportunities in case one of your deals screws up. After release, get publishers to pay for the port, like I said. Once you can put it everywhere, you should do that, because you never know where it's going to hit. You know, the Bomberman clone did the same thing. I'm very curious to talk to you later to hear how that's working for you. But everyone else should also talk to him about that too. Get into bundles, port your old games to new platforms. This is our dream anyway, which is that our old games will hopefully start to fund our new games, because the nice thing about releasing your game on a smaller, lesser known platform and having them pay for that is that when you put your game on a new, bigger platform like iOS or something, you haven't actually exhausted your audience at all, because it's a different audience. They don't really know your game exists, and then you can do all your real marketing there. But your game already exists on the internet, so that helps with like search engines finding it and other stuff. So I actually view that as a positive. And yes, just to be nice, give revenue share to your contractors so that they are engaged with your stuff. So now here is a list of publishers that, at least as of now, I am aware are giving money or marketing. Some are only doing marketing. So I will. Oh, I feel like my microphone came back on. This is exciting. And I think the window for this platform and big publisher method is kind of closing, because I think eventually in like the next 5 years, all these people are going to run out of money. But do it now. Okay, here's page 2. So they're still giving money now. You should try to do this now. Mid-sized indies are still funding. They still have some money. You should get money where you can, and then just make a good game with that. Now I have a couple extra things. So I did this weird marketing report for the Polish government. And I know that we're not in Poland, but we are in Central Europe, and there are some similarities here, which I will highlight some of. I did this survey through Gamasutra of US and UK developers and consumers to see what they thought of Polish games and Polish game companies, and I think it's somewhat some of the information is somewhat relevant. So the first one was, how many Polish game developers and publishers could these people think of? So it's hard, the colors are hard to differentiate on that screen. Oh no, it's not that bad. There about 25% said none, which is expected, and then about over 50% said 1 or 2. So that's not very many, and it shows that people don't really know what developers are from Poland, and that could be good and it could be bad depending on what you think. But the second question here, if you knew a game was made in Poland before buying or downloading it, how would it affect your opinion? The grand majority of people said it would not change their opinion at all, which is good, because we were just talking to the CEO of Bohemia Interactive yesterday or the day before, and he was talking about the old days when he would release a game and people from the American and UK games media would be like, these monkeys just crawled down from the trees and made this game. Like, they were seriously biased against games from this region at the time. And it seems like that opinion has completely changed, and that is good. And then I asked what kind of factors would prevent Polish game companies from getting recognition outside of Poland. And so the biggest one was they don't know which developers are Polish, which is just kind of another reason why getting together in the region is a good idea. And then the other thing was not a lot of big brands. But the most important thing to me, looking at this, is that the smallest ones are lack of quality and not enough innovation. They're not at all worried about that. So that's actually quite a good sign, at least for Poland. And then the last one is how would you describe Polish games in general? And this was after I had asked people which Polish games they knew about. So they actually, by the time they answered this question, they probably knew about more Polish games than they did before because they read my list. So with that information, at least a third of them said they were high quality. And then a bunch of them said not sure just because they don't know which games are Polish. So actually that is still looking pretty good. And in general, I would say that it seems like the stereotypes and prejudices are kind of gone or going away right now. That's the biggest thing, the biggest positive that I took from this. So, releasing in the US, talking to US publishers, it seems to be a much better time to do that than it ever was before. And I think people are starting to realize that there's a high amount of technical and artistic skill in the region. And so, yeah, it's a really good time to start talking to US publishers and seeing what they can do for you, especially because they all think that you're relatively inexpensive, and they like that. So that's pretty much it. The end. If you have any questions, let me know. Yes?
What's the name of the Sony fund you used?
Oh, there's no name for that fund, the Sony fund. That was just when they were starting up PlayStation Mobile, they were funding things. But Sony does, of course, have Pub Fund, and but the way Pub Fund works is you can get money after you've made the game. They give you money, so you have to be able to survive until you finish it, and then they'll give you money. But you also have to be accepted into it. But so several companies have done it, and it's worked pretty well for them. Anyone else? Yeah.
I have a question. Like, if you are looking for funding amongst these mid or big publishers, what is the kind of like usual pitch structure that you would be presenting?
Yeah, so I usually do it super casually. It works for me. I don't know if that works for everybody, but generally what I do is I have like a 1 or 2 page PDF that says what my game is about. And then, well, mostly I do these in person, but if I can't do it in person, either way, I have a prototype. If I'm in person, I will show them the prototype, and I'll explain more about how it is. If I'm not there in person, I send them a prototype, and I explain what exactly they're seeing, and then what they will see when the game is done. And I had a really important point that I was thinking about on the train related to this. What was it? Damn. It was about pitching. It's gonna come to me. I know that it is. Oh yes, I remember. Hooray! It's that, yeah, thanks. It's that I never put a potential release date or a amount of money that I need on the pitch sheet, because if you do that, they will hold you to it, even if they later change their mind about how big the game should be, or where you should release it, or when. And so I don't put that stuff on there until the contract is being signed, after we really know all the stuff that's in there. I never put that in a pitch document because even though they want it, Well, if they're interested in the game, interested enough in the game, they will ask for it, and then I'll say, well, what are we talking about here? And then we'll put it on there. Then it'll be like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. But if you do it at the beginning and you make an estimate, and then you're wrong for any reason, then the only one that gets screwed is you, and that's not great. Anybody else? Yes?
What do you think about the Steam Greenlight nowadays?
I'm so scared of it that I got a publisher for my game.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand.
It just seems like so much work to do Greenlight, and I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't understand the PC market as well as other markets because I was always a console player. Every time I load up Steam, it downloads like 12 updates, so that's how much I use Steam. But yeah, I keep hearing that they're going to change away from Greenlight into something else, but I still haven't seen what that thing is. I believe they're going to go more toward like curated lists and stuff, so then like PewDiePie has a list or whatever, and then everybody that likes him gets all of his games or something. And it actually could be quite good, but I don't know. I don't know anything.
What about the difference Kickstarter versus Indiegogo?
Well, Kickstarter has a wider audience, but Indiegogo is easier to use outside of the United States. So one thing that I have heard from a lot of developers is that a bunch of their Kickstarter money came through the Kickstarter platform itself. Like discovery through Kickstarter. They were on Kickstarter and then they got featured, or someone else mentioned them on Kickstarter and then it bumped them up in the searches or something. So in Kickstarter specifically, it seems like you get more promotion just by being on it. However, Indiegogo is the smaller platform relatively, so if you are starting to do well, then they really want to push you because they want you to do extremely well. Like there is a company, I won't say the name of because I think they'd get really mad at me, that made $800,000 on Indiegogo, and Indiegogo wanted them to go for another month to see if they could hit 1 million because Indiegogo wanted to have a 1 million seller on their platform. They didn't do it, but that's where Indiegogo is right now. So I don't know, I can't say one or the other, but that's the information I have.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Anybody else? Okay. I'll talk to you all after this now.
Thanks a lot, Brendan. So that's the end of today's event. In about half an hour, so about 8:15, we're going to start moving to the after party, which is at Black King Bar, whoever wants to join us. It's on Dunajska Street. A couple of announcements at the end, or thank yous. First thank you would be to Mary, who brought Brandon here today, from Games Austria, and it's also her birthday today. So let's congratulate her. There are guys in the back from the game analytics platform Infinario who wanted to sync. But maybe you can arrange something in the back with them in the end if they want to really sing to you. Okay, so that was a big thank you, and thank you to Brandon for coming and talking to us today. Thank you to all the studios who presented today. All these videos will be going up on YouTube sometime soon, once we get to process them and put them online. One last thing, I already mentioned it, next week on Wednesday at Black King Bar, where the after party is going to be, we're going to have a small game spot with some students and a professor from the Zurich University of Arts, specifically in game design. If you want to meet them, if you want to talk to them, what it's like to study game design, and we're also going to have a presentation about game studies in Brno and about the state of game development here in Slovakia, which is going to be by Pavel Budaj. So once again, thank you for coming, and we'll see you either next week or then in a month from now at the next real big GameSpot. Thank you. Bye.